everybody. It is day 30. Hey, two more movies left. And this is the last of the two, or the second of the two. First of the two. I guess that's the way that you say it. Man, I am so Godzilla out right now. You wouldn't believe. But we are doing the good American version of Godzilla with Godzilla from 2014. So that's what I just finished watching. And I still really like it. It's weird when you're kind of a little tired watching it, you're just kind of fading out in some parts, but it's still it still holds up. And really, I know the biggest complaint about this movie is the fact that you barely see Godzilla, but I kind of compare it to the other Godzilla films. I've watched a lot of these movies, and even though in some cases maybe you see Godzilla, he's still in it about as much as he's in this one. So it's kind of weird to be like, hey, Godzilla's only in it for he's only in it for 20 minutes of the movie out of a 2-hour movie. You know what? Godzilla Final Wars? I think he was only in it for about 20, maybe to 30 minutes of that whole freaking movie that we just watched. Because it was all focused on Godzilla, not Godzilla, but I said the humans fighting the Zillions and shit like that. That was just a big giant plot point. The first hour of that movie, you never saw fucking Godzilla. And for the first hour of this movie, you don't see Godzilla either. So, I don't know why people complain. Maybe because you didn't see as much fighting. Because I guess even in Final Wars, you see a lot of fighting, right? Even though he's not in it as much, you still get a lot of Godzilla on Kaiju action, and maybe you don't get as much in this one. So, what is the basic plot of this movie? Now, this is Legendaries, and it's in association with Toho, and what kind of sucks is that Toho isn't able to make any more Godzilla movies until after Legendary's contract is up after 2020. I think they get 3 Godzilla films. So we won't get another Japanese one until after that, but we'll talk about one tomorrow. So basically you have Bryan Cranston in this film, and he doesn't quite Seagal us in this film. He's in it for a good 40 minutes. Everybody thinks it was really slow, or short, I should say, really slow. But actually it was relatively long. So he basically loses his wife in a radiation accident, and they think that they say it's because of an earthquake that happened, and that collapsed the nuclear reactor they works at. Turns out that's not the case, and that's what he believes because he's been studying that. He had a son, and his son has grown up, and he's played by the guy that was the main lead in Kick-Ass. I can't remember the actor's name for the life of me. But funny enough, in this movie is Sally Hawkins. The girl that was in The Shape of Water that was the lead in that film. Totally forgot that she was in this. And, she's kind of more of a bit role in this than Shape of Water. And you also got Ken Watanabe in it, who I freaking love to death. That guy is a great actor. So he loses his wife because the thing collapses. And he goes kind of crazy because he wants to prove that it wasn't that. And so he gets arrested in Japan, and his son, who's now a demolitions expert, has to go to Japan to free him from Japanese jail. And he does, but he convinces his son to go back to the contamination zone, the quarantine zone, to go and get some discs and also to get a picture of his wife because he doesn't have any because he was forced out of the area so quickly and, where their house was. So they do that. They get captured by, I think it's Monarch. Not the Monarch, but Monarch. That's the name of the organization in this. And they basically bring them to the nuclear reactor, and they find out that there's something that's buried there and something that's been growing there. And it turns out to be what they call a muto, or a massive unidentified terrestrial organism. So, and it turns out that this one can fly. So it's no longer terrestrial, as one of the guys kind of makes a joke. Kind of not joke in the film. And so it's really about what are these things, what's going to happen. It turns out that there's 2 of them, and the one that's here is male, and it's flying to Hawaii. It eats a Russian sub, and then you get the first interaction between Godzilla and one of the Mutos. And Godzilla kind of gets an interesting introduction here because he doesn't get the full-blown oh, hey, Godzilla, and then you see them fight. Literally, stuff happens to the Muto, stuff happens with Godzilla, and then you see him show up, and then it cuts away, and it cuts away to the guy's son, and then he's watching Godzilla and the Muto fight on TV. Now, I know that's probably one of the scenes that kind of piss people off, because all of a sudden you get this really cool introduction of Godzilla, and then all of a sudden you can't watch him actually fight anything. It just kind of goes away, and then you see the military following after Godzilla over to San Francisco. And that's where the big showdown happens. Now, there is something that happens with the train because they're trying to get a bomb, and they're trying to lure them all to the bomb, kill all three of them in one stone, because they tried to kill Godzilla before with nuclear weapons, and it didn't work. So instead of like the 1954, they say they were like testing things, and they're actually related in this one. It's supposed to either be a Godzilla offspring, or it's alluded that might be the same Godzilla. But the test bombings wasn't test bombings. They were actually trying to kill Godzilla. The intro is really cool, too, to the film with the credits, because they keep, like, blacking stuff out like it's a report. And I really like the way they do that for this movie. But let's stay on target. So, there's the whole thing with the train, which I actually really like that sequence as well. They're trying to transport the bomb. They can't quite do it. The large female Muto fucks everything up. And so then they go to fight in the San Francisco Bay Area. Now, I have one big gripe with this film. And it's because I live in this area and I know where we're going to be going. And they say that they're going to evacuate everybody to Oakland. And which is fine. That's fine. They actually land in what I think is Angel Island. But in the background it says Oakland Bay Area Park. Yeah, so they can't use the name Angel Island, I guess, in this film. But they can use Oakland Bay Area Park. The other thing is that when they are evacuating people across the bridge, they're using the Golden Gate Bridge to get people across. Now, that doesn't go to Oakland. If you live in the area, you know what exactly I'm talking about. If you don't live in the area, you might not know that the Golden Gate Bridge doesn't go to Oakland. You take the Bay Bridge to go to Oakland. And so they wanted to use probably something that's really recognizable using the Golden Gate, but that would take you to San Rafael. And, people don't like going over that way. Well, I guess some people do. My sister lives over there. Maybe I just don't like going over that way. So anyway, eventually they get all the people over to Oakland, and you had the big fight between Godzilla and the Mutos over there in San Francisco. And that's probably the best part of the film. So when they actually start fighting, you see the guy that's Bryan Cranston's son. He realizes at one point that the Mutos have been laying eggs because they're trying to reproduce. And he sees the pit full of all the eggs, and he sets that fucker on fire. And that gives enough time for Godzilla to work his magic and actually beat both of the Mutos down. The last scene with the Mutos fight is probably the best one. See, he's trying to get the bomb out of there because it's going to destroy the city and maybe lure the Mutos away from it. It's on a timer. It's about to blow. And then he gets stuck on the boat, and he's going to be firing it at the Muto comes over there. And then Godzilla kind of comes out of the middle of nowhere, grabs that one, opens its mouth, and then uses its fire breath right down its throat. And even the first time that you get to see the fire breath is really freaking cool too, because you didn't quite expect it, because the first American film didn't really do it. It did some weird like roar gas fire thing, but this is actually his atomic breath, and it's fabulous. So you get a very happy ending. There is, Godzilla, he passes out because he's exhausted from the fight. And then he gets up with everybody, get the reuniting with his son, not Godzilla's son, but the dude's son and the dude's wife. And then they have him on the big screen as Godzilla wakes up, calls Godzilla the king of monsters, our city's savior. And then Godzilla disappears into the water, and everybody's kind of happy. So overall, I really like this film. It is in my top 5 of all Godzilla films. I'd probably place this at number 5. It's good for the American film. It is a Godzilla film. You have the human story, and then you have the Godzilla kaiju fights, and you have a resolution of all three. So it's got 3 really big things that normally happen in a Godzilla movie. So it's great. It's a Godzilla movie, and it's one of the best ones. I like the human story. I wish maybe it could have been a little more on the Godzilla side. You could have seen him a little more than what you did. But I'm hoping that King of Monsters will make this basically correct this mistake. So with that being said, that is it for today, for day 30. Tomorrow we are coming back with another one of my favorite Godzilla films, with one of my favorite directors of my favorite animes of all time, and we will talk about that for day 31 on Halloween for 3131. Terrible Terrorist signing off. See you later.